Hi, this is my informative 2 speech. I have my 2 brothers here, Brendan and Eric, my sister Jennifer, and my husband Jimmy as my audience. Water covers 70% of the Earth's surface. Approximately 80% of the world's population lives by the sea, and about 90% of the world's trade by volume travels by sea. The United States specifically is surrounded by the world's 2 largest oceans, the Atlantic and Pacific, making us a maritime nation. This makes patrolling and keeping the ocean safe extremely important. The U.S. Navy patrols our ocean on the surface, underneath, and above with ships, aircraft, and submarines. Today I'll be discussing the different ships used and how they help support the Navy's missions. Before we get into the ships that are used, let's go over what the Navy does. The United States Navy is the largest in the world. It started in early 1775 when the Continental Congress voted to send out 2 vessels armed with guns to intercept ships bringing ammunition to British troops stationed in North America. The Navy has grown tremendously since then. They cover all aspects of the sea, with planes overhead, ships through the sea, and submarines underneath of it. The main goal of the Navy is to win wars, deter aggression, and maintain freedom of the seas. The Navy's primary focus after World War II has been to project power. They have advantage over the other branches of not having to be on the ground in a location to fire missiles. They can be fired from a ship or dropped by an aircraft. An example of this is the Tomahawk missile, which is carried by aircraft carriers and cruisers and can hit targets from up to 1,000 miles away. The Navy works from bases scattered all throughout the world, mainly on the east and west coast of the United States. These bases are ports that specialize in naval operations. They have housing, docks, repair facilities, schools, and other things to support sailors and their families. Sailors are stationed all throughout the world to engage with other nations, maintain stability internationally, and to be able to respond to foreign issues rapidly. These troops are referred to as forward deployed naval forces. The Navy does not have a defined responsibility, but generally sticks to things outlined in their core capabilities. Those include forward presence, which is to prevent, deter, resolve, and terminate any war threats; deterrence, which is preventing wars from happening; sea control. The goal of this is to be able to dominate undersea warfare with sonar and aircraft, and it is regional or global and happens at peace or at war. Power projection, which is to deter aggression and deny aggressors the prospect of achieving their goals. And it's to make sure that the world knows that we are powerful and capable. An example of this is September 30th of this year. China tried to extend their strategic borders by claiming territories right off their coastline. The United States Navy sailed through the middle of these territories, and that was considered a freedom of navigation mission, which challenges excessive military claims. Another core capability is maritime security. That includes policing the waters and combating sea-based terrorism, such as hijacking, slavery, and human trafficking. This creates a safer, more reliable international ocean transportation system. And the last core capability is disaster relief and humanitarian assistance. Whether domestically or internationally, the U.S. Navy is always on call to help victims of natural disasters. This can be from the brush fires in San Diego in 1970 to hurricane relief in Samoa in 1990. The Navy is used to help emergency personnel, provide transportation or shelter, and bring supplies. The main way the Navy can achieve these capabilities is through their ships. The boat that the Navy relies on for speed and endurance is the destroyer. It is paired with larger ships to protect against short-range attackers. It was originally called the torpedo boat destroyer because they were used in the late 1800s for defense against torpedo boats. It is now shortened to just the destroyer. It measures about 610 feet long and requires a crew of about 300. It is a defensive ship and now protects against submarines and aircraft using missiles and radars. Another kind of ship that the U.S. Navy uses is a cruiser. This provides air defense for strike groups and can utilize up to 122 radar-guided missiles, and guns. They used long-range Tomahawk cruise missiles, which are unique to them because they can only be carried by aircraft carriers and cruisers. They measure up to 570 feet long and require a cruise size of about 330. And the largest ship commissioned by the U.S. Navy is an aircraft carrier. The Navy purchased its first aircraft carrier in 1911, and on January 18th, Eugene Ely made the first successful takeoff and landing from a naval ship. The Battle of Coral Sea in 1942 was the first battle to use aircraft carriers, and it was fought between the Japanese Imperial Navy and the United States Navy and Air Force. Aircrafts are important because they are a portable air base. They reduce the need to call on local bases, and it helps other branches like the Air Force by providing a place for planes to land, which has changed naval combat. It also increases availability of a combat zone because planes can be launched closer to their destinations. Aircraft carriers are typically the captain of a fleet. It is considered vulnerable to send out alone because of their lack of firepower and lack of agility as well. An aircraft carrier must have space for launching, storing, and maintaining aircraft, in addition to normal things on boats like crew, food, fuel, and ammunition. Their short runways affect the way that planes take off. The carrier assists through steam catapults, which are programmed to the kind of aircraft, and launches through steam pistons, which give it the thrust it needs to take off. Newer aircraft carriers use electromagnetic catapults, which use a different motor but are lighter for the carrier and put less stress on the aircraft. They are worth between $4 and $5 billion, which is a lot of money if they are sunk, and that also makes them more valuable and more of a target. And the United States has 13 currently active, which is more than all of the other nations combined. Although these ships can work individually, some missions require aspects of each ship, which leads us to carrier strike groups. A carrier strike group is the largest operation formation used by the Navy. There is no formal definition, and it is compiled on an as-needed basis to support U.S. global interests. It normally has one carrier, 2 or more destroyers, at least one cruiser, about 65 aircraft, a supply ship, and sometimes they include submarines. It is all centered around the carrier. Although it is a large group, it is flexible and can go anywhere at any time. It is used for power projection and sea control. It uses about 7,500 personnel and provides firepower, while the other ships provide defense support, but also all of them support and work together seamlessly. The goals of a carrier strike group are to accomplish the assigned mission and defend against enemy attack. As you can see, the Navy is very capable of patrolling our waterways and those internationally through the use of carriers, destroyers, and aircraft. They help support their core capabilities, mainly through power projection, and keep our nation relevant in an international setting. They are instrumental in helping the United States maintain a relationship with the allies based overseas in humanitarian assistance, and also to keep waterways safe from illegal activity. The work of our Navy is a valued aspect to our nation's defense.